Well, hello, and welcome to Gallifrey's Most Wanted. I'm Ross Aiken. I'm Old Who.
My name is Melvin Pena. I represent the Lollipop Guild.
And I'm home.
So, Melvin and Jeff have been kind enough to join me to cover the new one. We had such a good time last year covering all the specials and the first season of Shooty that I had to have them back to cover the Christmas special called Joy to the World. It's a Moffat written one. And I'm going to start because I have a feeling you guys are going to be a little surprised that I have issues with it because I'm the Moffat guy.
I have issues too, so
I
you're
have
not
issues.
alone in that.
My issues, I've seen a lot of people I respect really bash it for the things that I have issues with. I'm not going to bash it because I see the intent. I think it doesn't succeed. I think I love the stuff with Anita. I love the fact that he has to leave to go and learn how not to, figure it out. I love all that. It just, for me, forget the young lady from Dairy Girls and Bridgerton.
Nicola Coughlan.
Nicola Coughlan is ill-served. It's kind of a little. It's why are there the two of them? That is my biggest problem. Why are there two of them? Why
two of what?
Two
companions.
There's two. Anita and Joy don't need to exist, but that's kind of why.
I count three. So
who's the third one?
Almost four.
Trev.
Yeah, the third.
No,
is
I'm
Trev.
not worried about all the casualties. I'm worried about the character that's there to drive the story. The guest star.
There are three of them. It's a three-part story. You get three individual narratives.
Trev as them as any part of it.
But we'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm really. That's what Moffat's go. That's what I think of intention is he
This
wants to
is
show
going
them
to
as separate
be-
things.
Yeah, this is going to be fun as we untangle this.
Because
Yep.
I think he thought he was telling two distinct stories. He's not. I don't see that he doesn't succeed in my eyes.
You said ill-judged, and I will come to that as we discuss, but I think I'm probably sort of in a very similar ballpark to where you're at with this,
she was.
Ross.
I think she was very ill-served to bring
and
her on to do that.
I think ill-judged. Some of the things that were put into this episode were possibly ill-judged for Christmas Day, 5:10, sitting down with the family. I don't think the messaging involved was ill-judged.
Exactly.
I just think the placement of it in a Doctor Who story that's meant to be Christmas Day fluff, really, because that's how I've always viewed the Christmas episodes. Is a bit of fluff and a bit of something to see us through till the next season. I don't want to say filler, but stocking filler maybe is a more pleasant way of putting that. Let's get into it and sort of work through it bit by bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. And I've actually always had a problem with people's notion of the Christmas special as being necessarily sort of light or fluffy, because I don't think Moffat, for his own part, has ever played by those rules. Ever.
His first one, his first two, the rest of them, no.
Maybe. I mean, I think I've cried at every single one of them, but that may say more about me than it does about the content. But one of the things that I loved about this, and I absolutely, I love that we have a spectrum today, it seems like, of where we're falling on the sort of initial reactions. But I absolutely love this. I felt like, and not in a bad way, but I felt like this was sort of Moffat greatest hits again. And I feel like he's done that a couple of times now in the RTD2 era, which is crazy because he's only written 2 episodes. It's like they say, if I had a nickel for every time Moffat did greatest hits in RTD2, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. But I love this because it feels like we got more or less a full season of Moffat within 54 minutes, and I loved that it was compressed. I loved that there was no fat on it. For me, I felt like the story was pacey and fun and home-like and comfortable and cozy in a way that Moffat almost never is. So this is a weird thing where Moffat is able to bring back most of his greatest hits, but in sort of reverse them in a way that usually everything is at stake, which there's a lot at stake here, but it's in a comfortable, cozy way that really, really worked for me.
I think what we have to consider there is, Moffat played a big hand in this, but it is being edited, managed by Russell T Davies, and I think both of their fingerprints are all over this.
Yeah, I'd like to speak. Because I was thinking, I wanted to say this because Davies has definitely said during when he was first produced it, he didn't read Moffat's stuff prior to the table because he doesn't. He's like he saw him as I don't need to edit him. The director will do the right. You know what I mean? That will come later, but. I think this one is a little. I think for me it is. Melvin, I didn't think of it as a whole season or his greatest hits. It is very that the I have to go on the long way around and do this and do that and those beats and I like that. I love the stuff with Anita. I just don't think it gels and I do think it needed an edit. For me, it was clunked. Some of the bridging from one thing to the other was clunky. It just didn't ring, and the harshness. I agree with Jeff about maybe don't put that message, but put that message where she loses her shit. Fucking yes, say that. I have no problem with them bringing that up because. He hits that button, just think he's going to make her angry, and he gets more. And I like that because the doctor gets hammered back because, oh, fuck. I didn't know any of that. And he and I think he stepped back, and I like that. But, does it really fit? And it's just kind of jarring. And my bigger pet peeve in that part is fuck off with the big, I'm saving the universe, I'm saving the planet. Just save the fucking person. And for me, that is my biggest pet peeve with Davies and Moffat and modern Doctor Who is stop. Every story does not have to be that big. Sometimes individual is bigger. Sometimes one person or a small group of people is far more powerful a story than someone turning into the Star of David.
And that's what I got out of this story. I didn't get the giant universe shaking thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, certainly the world was a threat at the very least. And again, I think because I think both Ross and I are more familiar, probably, or certainly have had longer to digest the classic era and their method of storytelling, which is quite often very low key and small scale and about people. And this was about people. I can't take that away from it because the Doctor had a profound impact on two people's lives, Anita and Joy, obviously. Unfortunately, I really dislike the Doctor being an abject prick to people, even if it is to try and draw them out of something. He's done it with companions in the past, but very briefly. So Tom Baker insulting Sarah Jane Smith when she's stuck in the air ducts in Ark in Space. Sylvester McCoy belittling Ace several times to break down her faith in him, only to then immediately restore it. There was no sense of that sort of, we get why the Doctor is doing this, but I don't think Joy ever really gets that explanation or time with the Doctor to appreciate what he was doing and why. He just pisses her off for a legitimate reason. I just don't like seeing that on my telly, particularly.
I think he does explain it to her. It's very brief, but I think she does get it. And the other half of this for me is that he gives as good as he gets, because in this episode he also belittles and shouts at himself, which is I think a thing that again, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to the internet, but there's that scene which plays out twice where he comes to the door and gives the code.
I thought that was done really well.
He is shouting at himself, belittling himself, castigating himself, excoriating himself. Like, again, there's nothing that he is not doing, that he is not aiming that lens equally at himself as he is at anyone else in the episode. for whatever reason. And the
I think
worst
the reason
part about
is
it for me is that the one he's shouting at himself is even less explained. Like he doesn't explain that to himself. He just has to live through it until he understands it, which is for me even crueler.
Yeah, and I think the reason he is so brusque with himself and with her in a lot of ways is him departing Anita is a minute ago.
Yep.
And he's grieving.
Yep.
And I think I like that is the bridging thing of his grief. And I like that Ncuti is a doctor that cries. I like that he can be moved. You know what I mean? But, that he can be moved and that there's some emotional context. And I don't think it's forced. But I was really uncomfortable with that scene. Him being that mean to her. It was like the worst third how the third doctor can be really patriarchal, but he's not that fucking cruel. He's just
and don't get me wrong, it's not out of character for the Doctor.
Oh no,
as I've already established, this is perfectly within.
Give us a heads up if that's why he's doing it.
Yeah.
Give us just a heads up that that we know why he's doing it, because it did seem like, wait a minute, is this going to be this? No, please.
Well, the other part of it is bags of time. So how much, like, that's the one of the concepts that keeps coming up in this episode is like, you don't have time. You don't have time to do that. Like, again, whatever the stakes are, whatever you imagine them to be, whether I get that y'all think that, or one of y'all's perceptions is that this is sort of overblown stakes for what's going on here. I seem to see it as much smaller and more intimate. But regardless of that concept of bags of time that you have. Oh, Trev says you got 4.5 millennia. Oh, excuse me, it's 4.5 minutes. Or like, the briefcase saying you've got 20 seconds before the baggage holder is evaporated with extreme prejudice, as though it's not killing everyone that way, as though it's not going to kill everyone the exact same way. But that idea that you have to act, you don't have time to coddle people, you don't have time to make room for their feelings, which is the weird thing about the Anita sequence, which hopefully we will dive into in a minute here, is that that is one scenario where he gets the time, which is very, very unusual for
the juxtaposition. Maybe that's that juxtaposition.
I think that is a huge part of it. Yeah.
But
it
is
is
short,
frenetic. The
isn't
whole
it?
story in the hotel takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes? From when he meets Trev to where he saves the day is 30
something
minutes.
like that. Yeah, within real hotel time. Yeah,
real hotel time's like 15, 30 minutes max. But the year with Anita, and let's talk about that. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. It is what Moffat does better than Davies, is to show that kind of build the relationship of the Doctor with the character. Moffat doesn't always get it right, but when I like that Moffat has been in some of his stories, will bring in a guest character or a guest companion, whatever, and be able to build a relationship. And when he went back and spent the year with the clerk at the hotel, I was like, okay, I just thought she was going to be some extra character for comedic value, because that scene's kind of funny when all four of them are in the hotel room. Yes. And she's got the hairdryer.
And Joy is like, there's a lizard man in here. And Anita's like, yeah, that's actually never happened before.
Yeah, because she works at a hotel. What sick, freakish shit has she seen that she's just like, yeah, there's a lizard man in my hotel. Yeah, we had a furries convention one weekend. You don't know. But I loved it, and I loved her, and I loved their relationship.
I mean, just to cut in there, it's interesting. This was sold as Joy was going to be our Donna of the story, but she absolutely is not. She's not even Astrid Peth, although there are similarities that popped into mind.
I didn't even think about that.
Anita is our companion for this story, and I actually now class Anita as a companion of the Doctor.
Yep, absolutely.
Because she spent a year with him, and she travelled with him, but she travelled with him in a way that he never travels, which is day to day to day to day to day. It's very Stranded by Big Finish, which I loved.
Yeah.
So it goes, this entire segment is the redeeming feature of the entire episode for me.
It's the heart of the whole episode.
It's the heart of it. It's the pulse of it. It's the life of it. It's the bit where you enjoy yourself watching this episode, because everything that surrounds it is actually pretty brutal and pretty dark. Yeah. And we're seeing people drop like flies, and even if they do come back as holograms, Moffat,
no one can
they
fucking
still
die. It drives no one. I fucking hate it.
I love it.
But Anita, she got a better companion exit than half of the companions in the 60s. She actually got a really nice goodbye scene.
In the 80s. It's way better.
And then the coda. Yep.
Yeah, and then the little added bonus that she's now going to be working at the Time Hotel, and I like the fact that the Time Hotel isn't the thing that has to be taken down.
Yes.
Because in another story that could very well have been the thing causing the problems and causing the evil.
I jumped to that conclusion. I was
first draft. Maybe that was the plan. It's possible, but it's an interesting place, and I wouldn't mind revisiting that, and I certainly hope we revisit Anita. And I'm quite disappointed that she isn't carrying on with Shooty, because I thought they had lovely chemistry.
They got how they both loosen up, and by the end they're sitting on the fire escape, watching the sky, and their goodbye where she knew it was coming.
Yeah.
She starts to figure out how much does she know about him. They never really tell you how much he shared. And I love the whole thing with the little and I really did like the joke about he has all the police boxes on his desk. And she goes, "Where did you get them?" He goes, "On the internet. There's a surprising lot of them."
I love that the proliferating TARDIS is in the windowsill, because my headcanon now is that because y'all know that I love making clay stuff, is that because there are more teapots and like mugs and stuff on the windowsill. My headcanon is that they also take clay classes together. So I love it.
I was looking out to see if there was a character options TARDIS in there. There wasn't, sadly. And I did worry about the thing being on the windowsill, because the other side of that box is going to get really faded by the sunlight. Any toy collector is suddenly having paroxysms of fear about putting things in windowsills. It's like, no!
That's something the Doctor is going to have to learn on his own. Like,
he
doesn't. Yes.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised my wife didn't turn to me and look, because underneath our TV, Melvin's seen it. Is like 14 TARDISes in the glass case underneath. I have like 26 TARDISes in this house, in one form or another.
Oh my God.
Jeff, what did you think about the Anita sequence? What's your thoughts on Anita?
Yeah, she's absolutely my favorite. She's my favorite, and I think she. Yeah, I think she just deserves more. I want to see Anita again. Big Finish, we know you're watching. We know that the Time Hotel is going to get its own box set.
I really wouldn't be surprised if Anita gets another look in before the end of the Shooty Galway era.
Yeah, I think. I
really wouldn't be surprised,
likes to tie stuff up in a bow.
Because she is not a huge star. Like, she's not the kind of person like Nicola Coughlan where, their time, or even Shooty Gatwa for that matter, whose time is so precious that, and that's not an insult against her, because I absolutely loved her. For me, talking about Moffat's greatest hits, like this made me a little bit emotional. Sorry. I love this. For me, thinking about Moffat's greatest hits, this felt to me in some ways the Anita sequence. It's like 8 minutes. She is in the episode for maybe 10 or 11. But her focused sequence from where he finds that he's stranded there at the hotel and has to do it the long way around, like, it's maybe 8 minutes. So for me, this felt so much like, weirdly, this is going to sound like a weird comparison, but the Night of the Doctor, where you sort of got an entire sort of era of Doctor Who in like 6.5 minutes. Here, you get an entire, it felt so... not, I want to say emotionally manipulative, but that's the wrong way to say it, because that has a sort of negative connotation.
No.
But I felt so moved. I felt so attached to her by the end of that, by that 8 minutes. And like, you know, where they're just, you know, at the very, very end, Shudi is saying, you know, this year it was amazing, and it was amazing because of you. Sorry, it's just like everything he was saying there. It's like, it reminds me of every time I write a Christmas card or a birthday card to my best friend Julia. Like, it just felt so real and so genuine, and so, you know, they had, and you were right, Jeff. I think it was you were saying earlier, like they had an entire run together. They were you know, companions for a year, and like that it wasn't, you know, the adventures they had were domestic, and adventures in friendship, and adventures in platonic love, in a way that I don't feel like Doctor Who really ever explores, like especially the Moffat era, where it's almost, or the RTD era, where it's almost always like, where's the sexual tension, like will they, won't they, sort of tug and pull, like, you know, the constant refrain you hear about the Martha era, even though I think that's overblown, is that she was pining for the, like, there's none of that here. No. What they explore is, what does it look like to invest in a friendship? And
yeah, the whole thing's about loneliness. Yeah. Joy's lonely, and has survivor's guilt, but it's more, she's lonely. Anita is lonely. Imagine being the night clerk at a 5 or 6 room hotel in a big city. Yeah. And the doctor is like, you don't have chairs, you know, and it's like when he runs in the he's like, there are no chairs. And that was you know, Moffat's good about taking like just a small object in a room, and it isn't important, but it's an aid in when they just start sitting in the chairs. They're not alone anymore.
Yep. And it's so incredible, and I think we need to think about that, and you know, to think about, you know, that segment is over by the halfway point of the episode, but it is the heart of the episode. So one question that's worth asking ourselves, and I feel like every Doctor Who fan should think about, at least for a couple minutes, is if that sequence is so important, what does it tell us about the rest of the episode? And like, you know, the whatever qualms or questions or, you know, hesitances we have about the rest of the episode, if we go back to that and see what touchstones do we take that could apply to this sequence, like what is that telling us about Doctor Who? What is that telling us about this episode? What is it telling us about the things that we have issues or problems with? Because I had some issues and problems as well, like the COVID stuff. I mean, hopefully we can talk about that a little more in detail. But yeah, just to leave off this Anita sequence, like, you know, what you're just saying, Ross, about the chairs. That's one of the things that he chastised himself about as the two doctors were passing each other, and then he notices that. It's like at the beginning where he's like, what did I miss? What did I miss? And he's like, it was the briefcase. Here it's like, what am I missing? What am I missing? There are there are things in this room that fit together. What are they? And it's mind-boggling and amazing to me that is at the core of this episode, is like, there's an empty chair there. Please sit down and be friends with me. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that harks back to what Doctor Who has always been. It's been about companionship, and it's been about coming together, and that's certainly our experience as fans as well. Getting to come together today and sit and talk to one another, and just mull over something that we've either enjoyed or maybe been a bit hesitant about, but that is inconsequential, other than to the fact that we're sat here together talking as old friends, you know. And that's the message I choose to take from the episode. You can take away, but a lot of us were already familiar with the premise of what happened during our lockdowns and what happened during COVID. And for some of us, it is still very present, and it has left long-lasting and deep-rooted scars in communities across the world, I think. And there are very few people who are fortunate, like myself, to have come out of COVID relatively unscathed by either people I love or know passing away, but people I know and love have had that happen to them, Yeah. And so I think my biggest problem, and the problem that I really struggle with, is that COVID is still too recent a memory for us to start making a fiction out of it, if that makes sense. And I know that the ending did resound for a lot of people and has probably given a lot of people closure.
I think it's angered some people too.
I think it has angered some people too, because it is such a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
And again, this leads me to my reticence about the episode as a whole. Yes, the Anita scenes are the redeeming factor for me, and why I enjoyed the episode, and why I wasn't sort of turning my telly off in disgust at the end of the episode, However, the scene with Joy's mum at the end, I understand the sentiment. I understand where that is coming from, and it is not coming from a bad place. It is coming from a place of giving hope and heart to people who have lost.
You'll be back together with them. I didn't have a problem with that one.
I do think that for some people, seeing someone dying in a hospital bed alone would be incredibly fucking triggering and incredibly problematic, and bring up stuff from their own lives. And I think it's I wish they'd thought about that just a little bit more before making that sort of like the hook point to our finale of the piece, because for me, I just felt uncomfortable watching it, and I felt like I was watching something that was all too real in something that is supposed to take me out of reality and give me some escapism. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think, because Ross, you've worked in the medical industry and you worked through that entire period, and I saw what that did to you and what a toll that took.
It did. It was, and here's my thing is, I'm glad she says, my problems with it are tonal. A little bit what Jeff is saying. There's a way to tidy that the fuck up, to not okay. There's someone we all know who, I'm not going to say his name. He's someone we all have podcasted with. He's one of the sweetest people in the world. He was pissed on his tweet. He was angered by that. So there's something about it that was triggering. There's a way to tidy that up. Because the actress who plays Joy, fucking as an act, somebody who wanted to be an actor, that's her rage. That's my rage when I hear people who don't want to wear masks. I will lose my fucking temper because of my trauma from working in healthcare during the thing. But it is jarring. It was hard. It hit me hard. Like I didn't see it coming. It triggered me a bit. It could have been done better. You have two really good actors who are, with the script and the direction they are given, did exactly what they were told and what they thought was the right choice, but it was triggering. I understand why people would be triggered. I hate Moffat never lets anyone die. He's like the god of soap operas. It is just annoying. But I like that Joy, and I like the thing of Joy going, it's all right. I'm not dying. I'm just changing, which is, as someone who was a person of faith at one point, that is pretty much what all that really truly means is heaven isn't a place. It's a change in state. That's what you're trying. Heaven is moving on to the next level, the change in state, and that she could be with her mother again. Yeah. And she had control of it. That bit I liked. But the thing that got me was that jarring, that all of a sudden, that visceral rage. And the character, that is, if I'm an actor, that she's making the exact choice I would make. There would be spit. There would be red-faced. It would be very easy to hit that beat as an actor and get it. But I just don't. I think it's just too much. And it
Well,
really.
and I think that's one of the points also, and we were talking about the sort of time effects, and that's one of the things that Moffat, of course, excels at, is that, the time dilation in the Anita sequence, like time just sort of spreads out. You were talking about the hotel, like maybe takes 15 minutes in real time. For Joy, like it's about the same. Like she's, however much time she's on screen, that is how much time she has between when she checks in and when she apotheosizes. That is. Talk about compressed and again, having to, she is 4 years on from London 2020 when her mother passed away. Like she's had 4 years to think through this, and now it's all coming back up again for her.
Well, yeah, because she's gone to the hotel.
That she is living through at the same time and having to process in the same sort of time that we are being confronted with this as well. One of the things for me is I get exactly what y'all are saying, and I can get how it can be jarring or triggering for people, and maybe it is too soon, but Lost premiered in September 2004, and the entire pilot was a giant plane crashing and a bunch of people possibly dying, not even 3 years after 9/11. What is the time period between which something is and is not acceptable? At what point do we have to, is it safe to grapple with something that we are still living through? Because that's the other thing, the episode begins and ends also with those old rich white people who are, living through the end of the bombings in Manchester, which is an actual thing that happened, 22 through 24 December 1940, when the weird thing is, it's about to be obviously 1941. You're about to have 4 more years of fighting Hitler.
And you've already been fighting him for 2 at that point.
Yes, but that's the thing. We are about to enter 4 more years of fighting Orange Hitler. We're not only talking about COVID coming back, we're talking about the return of, I mean, you guys know what I'm gesturing. I'm not going to say his name. I just can't say it. But that's triggering for me. You guys are talking about this is what's framing the episode is you are heading back into, and this is the other thing in the news, we're hearing more and more about and Ross, this is directly related to what Jeff was saying about your workplace, is that we are possibly heading right into the next pandemic, the H5N1 bird flu, which is becoming transmissible in weird ways between humans and animals. When is the first human to contact going to come, or transmission going to come? We are headed into 4 more years of who the fuck knows what's about to happen. And that is reality. That is our reality. That's our reality right now. He disguises it and clothes it in, Manchester bombing 1940, but brings it right into your home in terms of 4 years ago, COVID pandemic lockdowns and all the stuff that we had to live through with that. There is something here in RTD2 which is much more aggressively look what is happening in our world than Moffat ever was. And I feel like this is something that Moffat, it's not that he shied away from real stuff. I mean, we saw it in the Monk trilogy where he talks about these things are inevitable, the Cybermen are inevitable, and again, I'm not going to say his name, but he predicted that 4 or 5 years, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever it was. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
I was just going to say no, and I wonder if this is the real evidence that Doctor Who is no longer an in-house BBC with its impartiality rules production, and this is more about what Doctor Who has become under the guidance of its own production team now, and what it probably always would have been had Doctor Who not been sort of over government.
I think, I'm thinking, Doctor. I mean, let's definitely put messages in his stories. He was
because I think that's the point. I think
that's the point of a storyteller.
I think you're supposed to be enraged.
Yeah, and I think, and I see what you're saying. And I, Davies has come out by going, I'm not going to have villains in wheelchairs. It's in bad taste. With the new Davros, and other things, that he wasn't going to do some of the things that make people younger than us, my goddaughter, would find offensive. and and just not he's not being PC, he's not being woke, he's just our mores change as a society, and you have to, and he's adjusting. But I think he's also is a little more. He always had a message, but I don't have the BBC's asking me to tone it down, and who knows? I think Jeff may be a little right. This is because him and Tranter and Gardner and not maybe Collinson, but they're putting their stamp on it while they can. And they're going to talk about things. And I think I never put the spray tan jackass into it, but it's not. I mean, it is bird flu. I'd Jeff be grateful because you guys may not get it because I know how it's going from chickens to cows because we feed our cows meat.
Yeah. Cats have just recently got it. They've recalled all the raw milk, which why do people drink raw milk in the first place?
Fuck 'em. You know what? The only good thing about them drinking raw milk is if you one less idiot if you get poisoning.
But it's kind of incredible how on the nose they could be with the pandemic stuff, but sort of like metaphorical or like figurative with the other part of it.
Yeah,
which is that is very, very on the nose for what we're about to see.
I do have to ask myself. I think to a point, yes, it does have a place in Doctor Who. I think Doctor Who has always had sort of like a moral core that comes, but very on the nose stuff. But then again, Jo Grant has been very on the nose in the past with her messages on ecology, and this is no different to that. But I think the anger of the writers and the people making the show is more transparently evident on the page and as it's performed. And I don't feel like it's the Doctor or the characters talking to me and imparting this wisdom. What I feel like is that they are being used as a mouthpiece, as a bullhorn, more than ever before. And I look to Doctor Who for escapism. I've never made any bones about that. I use it as a way to kind of compartmentalize and break down the things that have happened in my life and my understanding of them and my how I react to those things. And I think when I am having things that I already think just said so blatantly to me, it takes me out of that escapism to a point where I find it then very difficult to get back into it. Now, I'm saying that as a Doctor Who fan, as someone who, for me, the universe of Doctor Who is very, very important. But I'm also a real person who has real thoughts other than about Doctor Who. Not that you would know that to talk to me in public. But, it's so I find myself at a little bit of an impasse here where my enjoyment of Doctor Who is slightly jaded by the realities of where these messages are coming from, and it brings me out of it. And I say that it's quite simplistic, I think. But I think it's something that this is why for some people it has worked very, very well. Melvin, I can see how well it's worked for you. It has been something that you have benefited from. But I can also understand from the other point of view, and I say this sitting very firmly on the fence here, that there are things that haven't worked as well for everyone as well as they have for you. And I think we have to be very considerate of our fellow fans and the people who will end up listening to this conversation and go, look, you're not wrong or right for your enjoyment or dislike of this. You just have your opinion, and your opinion is your opinion is your opinion. And that's really the important thing. And I think people that choose to still fight about having an opinion online is why most of us are no longer on X. Most of us no longer participate in Facebook groups, and fandom has become something that has become very personal again. maybe that's not a bad thing.
No.
Maybe there is something to be said for your own personal enjoyment is only important to you, but that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Go ahead, Mel. No, go ahead.
Oh, what I was going to say is, and it's sort of related to exactly what you're saying. And one of the things that I do take from this, from that juxtaposition, as y'all both have been saying, between what is sort of epic and with scope, which is that Anita sequence, and what's compressed and what we deal with in fits and bursts in most of the rest of the episode, is again, it's one of the things that is relatable to me, is that after. Sorry, because it is real. Like, it's real to me. Like, after the election, so many people in Doctor Who fandom, I was so moved and so touched by this. Like, the day after the election, I got so many DMs and so many messages on all the platforms from people who I've never met. Okay, like people I've talked to on in Doctor Who podcasts, or people who have heard me in Doctor Who podcasts that live in the UK. Or other places, Australia also. I had some folks reach out to me from there, saying, we're here for you. We're here if you need to talk. We're here if you need support. We know these next 4 years are going to be hard. And like what that meant to me, to have people reach out that I didn't ask for it. I didn't post anything about it. And people like took the time to do that. People who, again, I've never actually physically met. Like the Doctor says to Hizdo Zolorak in this episode. I keep calling him that. Joel Fry, the Trev character, because he was in Game of Thrones as Hizdo Zolorak, which is just the name I love saying. He's like, I love you. He says, I physically love you. Like, there's something like, again, like, it doesn't matter how long or how short their interactions were, that the Doctor has had these, like, that having these adventures with people has an impact on them. Like, the adventures I've had with y'all talking about Doctor Who have had an impact on people, like, who were writing to me after the election. Like, again, this is, for me, and it's not to argue with you, it's to bring these elements together, to say, look, that the individual nature of fandom, who listens to these podcasts, what we talk about, the way that we talk about these episodes, like that there's an impact beyond us just sitting here. And, I feel like that the show, in the way that it provokes now, like I feel like it is poking the bear with a stick in a lot of ways. That it isn't supposed to be everyone agrees on what's happening here. And I appreciate the multiplicity of ideas and opinions, that, especially in the way that you're talking about it, Jeff, and the way you're talking about it, Ross, where we can talk about these things, even if we don't agree on them, we can at least discuss the impact. Like, why do we feel this way about them? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And I feel like having the conversation is important, even if there's not a consensus.
Yeah,
absolutely, and that is the general rule of thumb for how this world really should work, because there are two elements to a conversation. There is your part, but there is the other person's part of the conversation. And being able to sit back and listen to that and hear that and appreciate that whilst it may not be your point of view, it is their point of view, you can then start reaching agreement, even if it's to agree to disagree.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I think, and because for me, my niggles, and some of them are just that Moffat, who I love, he is my favorite Doctor Who writer in a lot of ways, he just triggers me with some of his tropes. I'm getting to the point where and I'm nitpicking. I really am nitpicking, because I do think it works. And I have issues with delivery, not with content. I want messages in my stories. And they should sometimes be blatant, and other times it depends on why you're telling it and how you're telling it, and what the vessel, like Doctor Who is the vessel of how you're telling it. You tell a story you should evoke an emotional response, from laughter to tears. That is the writer's and the actor's job. It is to make you feel what they're feeling. One thing that and we got the whole spectrum in this 40-some minute episode. You know, and it was a rough,
it was a roller coaster.
It was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So I see why overall, if somebody asked me, did you enjoy it? Yeah. It was well written, well made TV. Did I get hit with a fucking hammer toward the end? Yeah. I didn't disagree. I don't disagree with the message. I think it is something that someone needs to say those things out loud, because as we go into maybe another pandemic, we're going to have the mouth breathers who I don't want to wear a mask. I may give it to myself. What? Just go hit your head on a wall. There's that stuff. It has to be said is, people didn't, we cannot forget what happened. And that I think it is still a wound. I get triggered by COVID stuff still. I mean, I do but my anger is the people who wouldn't even do the simplest thing to protect their neighbor from catching a deadly disease because they wanted to sit out on their patio and drink Bud Light and get shit-faced or go shopping. That became, these things that weren't important. So I get it, but I liked it overall. Overall, I liked it. It just I had a lot of nitpicks to pick.
I didn't come out of the episode hating it. In fact, it's probably the most I've enjoyed a Christmas episode in a long time. I just have a few little warning signs that pop up every now and again during the episode. However, I think on the balance of things, and certainly having got the chance to talk about it as well, because I haven't talked about it online, because what's the point? I can definitely see the heart of what the intent was, and I don't think it's ever been done out of spite. But I can also appreciate how for some people that didn't necessarily impact them in the way that we would like, it impacted them in a negative rather than the positive. And people, we come from, there's the cynic and the optimist, and some people look at things cynically. Unfortunately, I have to put my hands up and say, yes, I do that. And there are people who look at stuff with optimism and see to the heart of the message and the intent in a different way. But yeah, on the whole, I think this was actually just for Anita. I bloody love Anita. I think I want
massive shout outs to Steph DeWally, I think is her name.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant from moment one. Every moment on the screen, she glowed.
I loved it because you know what I mean? When I saw her at the beginning, I didn't think we were going to see her again.
Yep.
I thought she was just a background player, and that she would be the heart of the episode. And they're so good together. He is such a good doctor. We got to
talk about shooting.
We got to.
This to me felt like he was the doctor in a way that I haven't felt in any other episode I've watched of him.
Yeah.
He just was. And there's something about like this episode and maybe the first Christmas episode, I almost call it Joy to the Ruby. Church on Ruby Road. Like there's something about him unmoored from a companion that really works for me.
Yes.
Like in a way that that's the thing, his relationship with Trev, I feel like bring back his Dozolorak. Like I want him as a companion. I want him as a doctor. Joel Fry was phenomenal he just worked. Yeah. And his chemistry with Shooty was incredible.
I think Shooty brings it out of people. I really do. I love his thing. Is it a toilet? And then the doctor going.
Is it armed? The plunger?
Is it armed? Jeff, are your porta potties all blue in England?
Oh, that's a good
the
question.
majority.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So they're called Jiffy Johns. That's the brand, Jiffy Johns. it does look like a Jiffy John.
But that's the weird thing is like every minor character,
every character
in this, there's something about the script or the casting. Shout out to Andy Pryor who does the casting and has done it forever and ever. Like this is the true marriage here because again his Dozolorak, the Trev character, the Silurian, who is the sort of he usually plays an officious sort of up his own asshole kind of guy. He does it in Sherlock. He's the one that Benedict Cumberbatch. I think it's the same guy. He scolds when he and the lady are like, "Your knees look a bit rough. Have you been over at his house cleaning his sink or something like that?" But he usually plays this officious guy. But he is so. Even he gets a sort of like warm and tender moment. Like he feels like a full.
Everybody that dies gets a moment. That death is hard. Trev alone. He's dying alone. Yes. He's like, I let him down. It was, Moffat writes. He writes for actors. He has an intent in the background, but he really writes, and because Davies has a rhythm, but Moffat, I think Ncuti. This is what I call it. It's like the Doctor. When you ever see a new Doctor, when you go into their second season, and they are confident, their growing pains are over. You're seeing it at the end of their first season, but when you see John as good as John Pertwee is in season 7. When he gets on screen on season 8, and he's happier with what's going on, and
because
he's very
they
comfortable.
Find their doctor, don't they? They find their doctor. There have been very few doctors who have hit the ground running. I think Tom Baker. I think even Christopher Eccleston is a different doctor by the time he gets to the end of his season. I think David Tennant is a different doctor by the time he gets to the end of his first season. They all find their feet. I think
the great thing and the unique thing about that, just to break in real quick, is the multiplicity of voices you get, the strength of voices that are writing the character. It's one of the things about the Matt Smith era that has always sort of sat strangely with me. And I think I just put my finger on it. Like, yeah, Eccleston's Doctor is different. There's a couple Moffat episodes in there. The David Tennant Doctor is different by the end. There are a few Stephen Moffat episodes in there. Like, the fact that you get two really strong writers sort of negotiating what this character is makes a huge and Capaldi, like, you get Sarah Dollard, you get what's his name, Flatline, Mummy on the Orient Express. Like, you get these strong writers who can inject something different than what the showrunner has to say. And I feel like that makes a huge difference.
And
sorry to interrupt you, Tim.
Well, no, it's interesting because the only other Doctor who I think found their character as soon as they sort of hit the ground, as pun excused, is Jodie. She is very, very solid and consistent all the way through. And Tom Baker's Doctor, even by the end of his run, is two different Doctors, basically. Yep. You have the first portion
one
of his
with
run
rules
and
then the one with no rules.
It's the one with a strong producer and the one with...
Well, it's like how Baker's last season.
Personality-wise.
Well, but you think about it, you're right. When you go into season 18 and Nathan Turner's has more control over him, and he knows he's on his way out, that Tom Baker, the serious actor, really kicks back in. Because I think his performances in that last season are so much better than in seasons 16 and 17.
Yes, because there is more control and more authority from a higher voice than the actor, and there's more focus of vision, I think. It may also have helped that Barry Letts was shadowing and making sure JNT wasn't screwing up for season 8.
JNT would tell an actor what to do. He didn't give a shit. He was a stage manager, so that he knew it. It's like I have actors who go, "Why are you talking to me like that?" Because I'm your boss. You do not understand. I'm your boss. I'm not your buddy. I'm not your mommy. I'm not cleaning up to you, so you're all dirty. Actors are filthy and they're gross. They're like toddlers with chocolate or shit on their hands. That's all I got to say. And I would when I was a stage manager, my bosses would go, "Are you going to clean the dressing room?" I said, "No. I'm not cleaning up after those monsters. You're out of your fucking mind." But there is this, and I agree with Jodie. All Jodie did, Jodie's Doctor, she hits it. She is consistent. She picked, I'm going to be this Doctor. I'm going to be this energetic. These are going to be my beats. And she would find the other things inside the scripts. And when we get to the end, and she's gone through this.
Character developed,
and it didn't develop. It wasn't all this heavy-handed, Davey. And I don't mean this in a bad way. Davies and Moffat want to push that stuff into it more. Where Chibnall is, we're going to have those moments when they're needed, but we're going to be more contained in the middle, in the little episodes. And then he stretches his legs in the seconds. We're going to have some two-parters. Now we're gonna do a big arc, And I think in some way that was Chibnall's plan, was give you what the Doctor looks like, have the Doctor grow, give the Doctor their epic story at the end before they leave. And I think she is consistent. I agree with that. Because some of them, I don't think they do. I mean, it's like Peter Davison. You can tell in Fort of Doomsday that that's the first story he's done. Because when you get to because Caves
the flesh time. I love the flesh time.
Yeah, I did that one's not bad, but because in Castrovalva he's Peter Davison's Doctor once his head's cleared. Because he's done 2 stories.
I was talking about ceramics earlier. Mm-hmm. Look, I made a flesh time commemorative mug.
Oh, that
was it. Just going back to where we started from, was it you, Ross, who said that he actually felt like the Doctor?
That was me.
It was you.
Yeah. Oh, I thought he felt like the Doctor.
I think absolutely that is where I'm sitting as well. Is he pulled it out of the bag for me here? I think because I'd had my issues through his first season, and it kind of left me a little bit unsure where I was, but I can appreciate how good an actor he is. And that was my appreciation of his Doctor, is how good an actor he is. But now he actually felt like the Doctor. And funnily enough, the scene that cinched it for me is when he's telling himself off.
Yeah. Oh, he's so good. It's such a good scene. It is. You know what? I'm going to watch this one again at some point and probably like it, and then watch it years later and go, don't really like this one, because that's the nature of being a nerd who watches things over and over again. Your mood changes you, I mean, watching Doctor Who and podcasting about it during the pandemic, I saw things, every once in a while I'd have to turn my mic off and let Vic go on whatever had triggered her in the real world from a story. And I did the Mutants with Mark Cockrum, and it was Trump to me. The Sky Marshal.
The Marshal of Solace.
Yeah. All he needed was to look like an Oompa Loompa, and we would have been on. It would have been too spot on. But
bloated with their own self-importance. Would be.
But I think, I think I like this one. I mean, I liked Shooty's first season, and I think he was really good. But I think that first scene with him and Trev, where he's in his PJs, he goes, I have my own room, and he's stealing shit from the Continental Breakfast. The first time I watched it, I didn't catch it. He was taking biscuits off the tray and just putting them in his bathrobe pocket. Just dropping him in there. And he's looking around.
One of the reasons
he's looking around.
That he really
I've been in a
registered
hotel
as
and
the
gone,
Doctor.
Granola bars, and put them in my pocket. I'm not.
I went to a hotel.
And he
speaking
steals
of hotels,
2 cups of milk.
Oh my God!
He goes, maybe I should just get a fridge.
We got to talk about that for a second, because there was that part of the call out where I felt called out, where he's telling Joy about the hotel room that people choose. Mm-hmm. He's like, in a house, right, where you live, you can hide yourself behind, your framed pictures or your art or your action figures, all this kind of stuff. And that's the thing where, she critiques him and says, but Doctor, you stayed in that hotel room for a year. The thing about that is that he made it into a home, by the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
But I get it, because, he says to her that if a hotel room tells you what you are willing to accept, which is, God, that's a hugely Moffat thing. Because I feel like a lot of Moffat, especially with the Doctor talking to himself, is Moffat really just leaning into the self-loathing, which, I remember hearing the end of this most recent, there's still one episode to go, of the most recent run of Flight Through Entirety, where they're talking about the Peter Capaldi era. And Jeff, this will appeal to you if you haven't heard it. At the very end, they're like, yeah, Jodie comes out and she smiles and she's like, brilliant. And I think Nathan said something like, yes, this signals to me that this is the end of Doctor Who man pain. But that's one of the things that Moffat is good at, and and can do it in a really cutting way. So when he says, the hotel room is what you are willing to accept, like this is the bare minimum that you feel you deserve in a certain way. Like I recently took a trip down to Savannah to see one of my favorite music artists, Flock of Dimes, and the hotel room I stayed in, y'all, was I felt attacked when I saw this episode, because it was the cheapest place I could get. It was about 6 miles from downtown, which 6 miles from anywhere is, I never think about this, but 6 miles from anywhere is you're going to be in a place that's either a little bit strange, a little bit odd, a little bit dangerous, whatever those words mean to you. And I don't mean them to sound like weird
Sketchy.
or classist or whatever. But it was literally by the Savannah docks. And, you know, I woke up like 3 times in the middle of the night from like boat sirens and police sirens. And I'm like, this is just like, and the room was like built. It felt like a sort of place that people would take their mistresses in the 70s, because an entire wall of this place was a mirror. And that's the weird thing, is like the doctor's literally saying, this is a mirror. You're shining a mirror on yourself. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like the sketchiest place in the world. Like, I just felt really attacked by that. But sorry to keep going on and on, but like I just had to address that. Yeah. But I have to bring it back around to what y'all were just saying, which is, you know, what are we getting finally from this episode? And for me, again, just to come back around to sort of expound a little bit on a point I was making earlier about people reaching out to me after the election. So what is one of the things I'm taking away from this is one of the things I took away from that experience, which is thinking, oh shit, like how did I survive the first 4 years of Orange Hitler? Or like and also back to back, I mean, we've had just like greatest hits last 8 years, because we had 4 years of that and then 4 years of, you know, pandemic. It's just been nonstop thrills and excitement. And I say that in scare quotes. But like, how did I make it through the first go round? I made it through with friends and community. And I feel like that is what brings us back again to that Anita sequence. So what's the core of the episode? Like, you know, and that one that he gives himself not even half a second to grieve. He walks back to the door after he closes it and sonics it shut, you know, sealing himself in for the year. And he's like, be kind. You will miss her. And that is the only moment he gives himself to look back and to grieve the loss of that friendship. But like, he acknowledges it. He knows it was there. He knows it was real. And again, like thinking, how am I going to survive? How are we going to survive these next 4 years? Whether it's Orange Hitler and Elon and his vice president, First Lady Elon Musk, like ruining the world's economies or doing whatever the hell they're going to do. And we do it through our communities. We do it through our friendship. And I love that is the last message that he gives to himself there at the end, is like Joy telling the doctor, go find a friend.
Yeah, I did like that. I do.
Like, go find one right now. Like, that is such a powerful exhortation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm done. Thank y'all for letting me go.
No, man, that's why you watch things like this. That's why you watch art, is to be affected by it. I mean, just, you know, even if it's just something simple. Flying cat behind me. You guys miss it. The cat just jumped over my head. But let's move on to recommendations. I'm going to go first on this one. It's a two-hander, I think. One is going to be, I got my Blake 7 Blu-ray set, and it's nice to see that show get the same, what did Jeff, you call it for the Doctor Who Blu-ray sets? What are they archiving? What did we say?
Archive, yeah.
Yeah, they're archiving
it. Documenting.
They're documenting, and the Blake 7 set is just as good, and they look beautiful. It's great. I'm glad they finally announced season 25 is coming out in February over here for the Doctor Who sets. Yay! And season 7 is the next one. Yay! Even though I already have, it's going to have 8 discs and there are only 4 stories. I'm like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, but they're all bloody long apart from the first one.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to recommend is a comic I bought just on recommendation, the 2 oversized hardcovers. It's called Fear Agent. It is a comic book by Rick Remender, Terry Moore, who is one of the creators of Walking Dead, and a gentleman named Opina. A newer artist, I don't know, but basically this guy's an intergalactic exterminator, but it's a love letter to 50s EC science fiction comics, and it's kind of like the costumes and the sets and the rocket ships you would see it on if Doctor Who was made in the 50s. The monsters are very funny, but it's really full of action. I've only 3 issues in, and it has a frenetic pace, and it's not fluff, and it is beautifully drawn. It is very it's a little closer in science fiction tones to 2000 AD than it is to American science fiction comics in the last 50 years because we don't have them. We really don't have them anymore. So those are my 2 recommendations.
Sorry to correct you on your recommendation, but that's Tony Moore.
Tony Moore. Terry Moore.
Terry Moore is also great.
Well,
Terry Moore wrote Strangers in Paradise.
Yeah, Stranger in Paradise. Sorry, yeah, Tony Moore. Yeah, but
which if you don't follow him on whatever socials, he is always posting pictures of the 2 main characters, Francine and Kachu.
Yeah.
Which they're always so his art is so winning. Yeah. It's so lovely.
I love that series. That's another good series.
But actually, your recommendation.
No, that's it. But I think that's a good I think Stranger in Paradise is a good recommendation because it's just day of the life stuff. There's no superhero stuff in it. There's no magic. There's no science fiction. There's no horror. It's just people living and just being friends and stuff like that. But yeah, Fear Agent's a lot of fun. It's beautiful. Oh, it was so pretty. All right, Melvin, what do you got to recommend?
I really love. I want to repeat one from our last GM Dubs, which hasn't come out yet, for Jeff's benefit, because I don't know if Jeff you've recently read. I recently read one of the Titan comics with the 12th Doctor the 10th Doctor and 13th Doctor. I don't know if you've read any of those, but there's one where Jodie and the fam get stuck in 1969 London at the same time that the 10th Doctor and Martha are there during Blink, and it is so charming. It is so. Is that
the one where they have to buy a house? Do they buy a house in it or live in a house?
It might be in the second half, which I'm now reading, but it's 2 discrete halves.
Yeah.
I've only seen a couple of Jodie comics, so I might be conflating a couple of things.
Well, I think it's the same one. They end up buying.
I've got the DRM free version, so I can just send it to you also. I just think you'd love it. I think it's lovely. Yeah. Jodie Hauser gets all their voices just right. The Jodie and the fam and the 10th Doctor and Martha, it's lovely. So that and then my true recommendation for this episode is I just recently saw a series on iPlayer, which don't ask me how, but it's called This Town. It's a series that came out this year. It's about social unrest and ska and stuff like that, ska music in 1981, where Coventry and Birmingham.
Where I live, thank you.
If you haven't seen it, it is brilliant. Oh my God, it is brilliant. It's just about these friends who make a band in 1981. It's absolutely phenomenal. Amidst riots. What's that? It's called This Town.
Okay, so from the specials, Ghost Town. This town is coming like a ghost town. Yeah.
Okay, yes, exactly. Yeah. Yep. It is, oh my God, if you haven't seen it, if you've got access to iPlayer, it's like 6 episodes. It is phenomenal.
I will check that out. It'll be interesting to see if any of it was filmed in Coventry. I doubt it.
All right, Jeff, what's your recommendation? Do you have one?
Well, do you know what? What have I been doing? I've been listening to, this is a bit off-brand for me. I've been listening to the Thursday Murder Club audiobooks by Richard Osman, who anyone in the UK will know immediately.
I know.
Yeah. He's also the partner of Ingrid Oliver.
Exactly. So, it's about a group of pensioners who live in a retirement village on the south coast of the UK, who solve murders. One's a former MI5 agent, one's a former nurse, one's a psychiatrist, and one's a former militant activist from the days of Arthur Scargill and the miners' strikes and what have you. And they solve crimes together, and there's a lovely supporting cast, but they're all so beautifully written, and they all have such heart and joy to them that I can't help but love them.
Nice.
Not my usual thing. My other recommender. I will also recommend a band called Ghost Buffalo, who have currently 131 active monthly listeners on Spotify, and they deserve far, far more than that. So I'm going to recommend them. And if anyone's into horror films and is not turned off by explicit gore, the Terrifier franchise has been an absolute joy to me over the last couple of months.
I've heard of that one.
That's good to know. That's the one with the weird clown on the cover, right? I've got all of them. Again, I won't say how, but it's good to know. I will move them up on the queue.
They are gory as hell, and sadistic and brutal, but art art is what horror has been missing for a little while, and that is someone in the vein of a Freddy Krueger or a Jason Voorhees or a Michael Myers or a Leatherface, an iconic horror villain who, as the stories unfurl, develops more and more lore and becomes... He's so charismatic and engaging for a brutal psychopath, and he never speaks one word.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
That does sound
really
good.
amazing. I like stuff like that. Some of those are freaky. Like I can't watch the what's his name? Who did Us and oh God, he was part of Keenan.
Same guy.
Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele. Yeah. I can't watch his movies, and no, because I couldn't like
They're
Exorcism and weird ones that are like that. Just I will have night terrors. I forgot I was going to recommend something else. I'm going to do it real quick before we say goodbye.
Yeah.
Is Skeleton Crew on Disney, the new Star Wars series. It is Goonies meets Star Wars. It's absolutely joy. It's so fun. The kids are great.
That's also good to know.
The kid Neil, the guy playing the little blue elephant creature Neil he steals the show.
Is he called Neil?
He's called.
Did you just say Neil?
Neil. He's called Neil. You haven't seen? Oh, Jeff, you'd love it. You would love it. It is nothing but joy. There's no dark. I mean, it is very good. The kids are great.
I've always loved Max Rebo. He's always one of my favorite.
Well,
in the original
he's
trilogy.
Neil.
So I was a little skeptical
little kid.
when I saw there was another little blue elephant guy.
These are kids that have been pulled out of like a safe suburban area, and are now stuck on a derelict ship with a pirate and a broken robot and trying to get home.
That sounds good to me.
Can I chuck one more recommendation in? Just while I'm here.
My wife is coming in going 2 thumbs up, but it's a lot of fun. And I wanted to say this. There's a scene where Neil they're on a war-torn planet, and he gives his food away to 2 kids that don't have any, and he's lost. And this other kid who is a child soldier on this planet, Neil changes her life by doing that simple gesture of sharing, because they don't share in that world. They have to fight for resources. And I was talking to somebody.
That's a bit close to home.
Yeah. Oh no. And then I was talking to one of the guys I work with, is a vet, and it said it made him cry twice, because he's been in combat where kids are fighters and don't have food and have had to watch people die. Been in that thing. And wow, that is a high, man, because that's the kind of thing. But it is what science. It's the closest to the original Star Wars film I have fucking seen since the original Star Wars film.
Wow, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Wow, in tone, it is Star Wars distilled to its best elements. I love it. I've loved everything they've put out. Anything that's Favreau and Fellini. And this isn't by Favreau and Fellini. They are the executive producer, but these are people who are all they're feature films, and I can't remember one. They're all the only person who's never this season that hasn't directed a feature film is Dallas Bryce Howard, and she's the only one Filoni and Favreau have had direct at least one episode in every one of their seasons. Because she's that fucking good. It is.
She did some really good Mandalorians.
Oh, she does the fights. She does the big battles. You're like, what the fuck?
She did the one with his ship crashing down onto the planet with the Mon Calamari and the.
Yeah. No. It cannot recommend it highly enough. And the episodes are like 35 minutes, 45 minutes, not 30 minutes. They're only as long as they need.
They need to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It is, and it was great. We watched it. We caught up the last 2, and me and Leslie. Leslie heard me, came in. She came in to give 2 thumbs up. Wally with a bowl of cereal in her hand.
I just want to add, I don't know Joel Fry from Game of Thrones because I've never watched Game of Thrones because I watched 4 episodes, did not get on with it. I know him from Our Flag Means Death with Taika Waititi.
And he sings the theme song, which is brilliant also.
I need to watch that.
He's a multi-talented guy. I still haven't watched season 2. I need this episode of Doctor Who moved that to the top of my list because I have not seen it. I loved season 1.
Yeah, I want to watch that because the lead in it is he's going to be a guest star in Strange New Worlds, and they're kind of saying that he's going to be Kirk's father.
Oh, Rhys Darby?
Yeah, he may be playing James T. Kirk's father.
He's so good. He could be a doctor.
Oh, he'd be a fucking great Doctor, and he could wear the fucking costumes that he wears in the pirate. You know what? Put some. That's one thing. Before we say goodbye, my one pet peeve in Modern Who is, please put a companion from another time in the past,
Yes.
and
Yep.
so we can see their wide-eyed wonderment, and you can bring that joy into it, because I don't want a jaded 21st century. You remember, we're all kind of wanting piss ants.
I do sort of feel like Moffat had it both ways in this episode, though, because the primary place this episode takes place is in the year 4202, and so she is technically a companion from the past.
All right, folks.
And real quick, one thing I wanted to say that I forgot to bring up was how much I loved during the Anita sequence where it almost feels like he's doing Big Finish for her. Because she starts being like, "What do you mean they can't move when you don't look at them? That's rubbish." Like he's telling her stories about he's telling her Doctor Who stories, which is I found that so charming.
Yeah.
I found that so charming. Sorry, I had to get that in there.
All right, folks. Hey, guys, thank you as always for joining me when the new season starts. I kind of was intrigued by the trailer. It was a good trailer. Doesn't mean, please don't let it be all the high points like some trailer movie. You see a movie trailer and you go to the theater and went, shit, I could have just stayed at home. I've seen all the good parts. I'm excited. I want to find out who Mrs. Flood is. Is she Anita? Is she Susan? I like all the guesses. Some people are already guessing that,
Well, she's Anita Dobson.
Yeah, I know that.
Yes, she actually is.
See, that was someone online going, "Oh, that's why she's named Anita." Oh, Jesus Christ! Shut up! She's the Ronnie. Just say she's the Ronnie and be wrong. But I'm excited. I will definitely have you guys back on for that, because these are always fun, our chats. And
Yep.
folks, hey, as always, we look forward to seeing you somewhere in space or time.